Everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we've got a top 32 breakdown for the Paris finals for the first season of the European region for the 2025 season of the One Piece card game. So honestly, really looking forward to it. These are some pretty interesting decks, I think, when considering especially OP11's been pretty much brick and mortar when it comes to what decks are looking like and also just what decks are viable. Also, I do know that there were some pretty big events here in North America at Gen Con, which those will be on the website within the next 24 hours or so. I was just able to get access right before recording this, and I'm going to be adding that pretty much as quickly as I can, essentially. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. If you guys haven't checked out Eggman events, we've got a lot of data for a lot of events for this one, and we will be transitioning to OP12. And this will likely be my last OP11 based tournament result video for this season, right? We're pretty much at the end of it. I know a lot of people are kind of just like, I don't know how I feel about this format, and the fact that we also have a restriction list announcement. OP12 comes out in a couple weeks, so it's going to be, the start of the transition on that one. But if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of content. Make sure to check out Eggman events once again, and let's jump on into it. So we did have, I think it was like 13 or 14 leaders top this event, which is generally a sign of a good meta. I know that there's a lot of different decks that are viable right now. I think the fact that Betty and Blue Purple Luffy are pretty much like the two boss monsters for this meta, right? And the issue with these are that these are two strong decks that are pretty much on like the opposite side of like the spectrum for this game, right? Betty is like, it wins in like 4 or 5 turns, but it like burns out of resources. You need a lot of low to the ground removal. And then we've got Blue and Purple Luffy, where it is the opposite. It ramps as quickly as possible. This is the deck that just never runs out of value in this game. And so it's really tricky for a lot of decks to like say, all right, I can do really good in the Betty, but I can't really, do a good job in a Blue Purple Luffy, and vice versa. It's kind of a weird polarizing where you don't really feel confident. Like it's either one of these is like your best matchup and the other one's like your worst matchup. And it's weird to see that in such a thing. So I know a lot of people have been asking also for some Purple Luffy bans, and I still think something needs to change a little bit, but not, if you just look at these results, right, it doesn't look anything too infamous, right? We had 6 copies of the Purple and Blue Luffy get into the top. We had 2 copies of the Black and Purple Luffy, which that was the only deck list leader I was not able to get. I've been having to kind of crowdsource these through the community. If you guys have a Black and Purple Luffy list that got top 32, let me know for this one. But we do have a lot of deck lists here. We have all of the top 8. We've got 12 of this top 16, and every unique leader except for Black and Purple Luffy. So I am so looking for those as well. But we're going to jump into going over the top placing leader for each one of these deck lists. Top deck lists for each one of these leaders. I got them backwards, but we're going to go over starting off with our first place list, which is Kevin's version of Marshall D. Teach. And if you told me that Teach was going to win this event, I probably wouldn't believe you. I'd say that I think that Teach is probably like a really strong deck. It's gone tops for this one, but it was not on my bingo card for getting the win for this event. I think top 8 wouldn't be out regional. Top 4 also, I couldn't be convinced, but it's really surprising to me to see this deck win the entire thing. So it did get some new tools with the star decks that wasn't available for Japan in the OP11 for their side. And we are running quite a few of them. We are playing 3 copies of the Marshall D. Teach, as well as the Kuzan, 1 copy of the blocker from Stardeck 27, and also the Wolf here being able to just be an additional blocker for it. So I do think this is a deck that, one, gets a lot of removal for Betty, since we are able to kind of interact with their low end. The fact that we're also a level 5 HP leader is really, really nice as well. I think the other thing to note too is that this can help against like Black and Purple Luffy, because it does prevent them from playing Sanji and Linlin and getting their effects. Obviously the 8-drop Katakuri is really obnoxious, but our 10-drop Teach can kind of take care of that too. So I think this is a deck that does have a lot of lines against some of the more popular decks in the format. You do have to be careful though about being aggressed down, which I don't think is still too unpopular for a deck like this, but I think it's still in a really, really good spot. And obviously Teach got a lot of support from not only the main set, we also got like Caribou, but the star deck, I think those additions really help. So this 7 cost I think is great, and specifically against Betty. If you're playing against Luffy, like this card doesn't really do that much. Like you'd have to get like a lot of reduction for you to be able to get like an 8 or 9 cost away, which isn't too terrible. We have like Von Augur, right? And then also like Tempest Kick, we're playing 4 copies of this. This one I don't think is an automatic add for most Blackbeard builds. So this is a decision that say, what, I want to be able to get some high removal in a lot of situations. This also being able to get like a -3 with like Doc Q lets you get rid of a 4 cost, so it's good against Betty. So this deck definitely looks flexible to be able to go against those two. I think Teach is still going to be really good into OP12 as well. And here is the build from Kevin. Congratulations for their first place finish at the Paris Finals. For a runner-up, we've got Angelo's version of Balo Betty. This also is the build that Kaminari ran to get a top 4 finish as well. And you guys know what Betty looks like, right? This is generally probably one of the like 50 for 50 decks that exists in this game, right? I think the only decision points for it are how many copies of Zeus do you run? I see people play somewhere 2 to 4, but I definitely think this is a card that's worth being used. The fact that you can use this to get rid of a 5 or less, there's just so many good targets that exist. The fact this also like draws you a card in a deck that really, you know, by the end of the game, you just have too much Dawn to really do as much. Like you're just drowning in it, right? Like you just have to be like, well, I attach 8 to my leader sometimes. So being able to have like that too to get like a card that you might need or get rid of a blocker that you could also run into is really, really nice. You know, the promo Sabo's been really strong for us too. We didn't get, you know, this was like one of the later promos that, you know, Japan got way ahead of us, but we currently have right now. But I think this card is really great for the deck, and being able to not only be like a Revolution Army card, the fact that this also lets you know, activate main, add cards from your life to your hand to get some draw. You really don't care about how many cards are in your life, because your opponent's going to be really defensive for the rest of the game. And as long as you don't like get too greedy with it, you can get some good card draw and really kind of advance your gameplay. And then we have Emporio Karasu, right? We know that these two cards are really, really strong. I don't know if these are going to get hit, if I'm going to be honest. I think this is like one of the cards that people are really asking to get hit, just because, like, you know, being able to play another body out for free is really strong in a deck like Betty, where it's just like discard 1, play a 4 cost, especially when the 4 cost is Karasu. I know that Betty hasn't been doing really well in Japan's OP12 meta, so that could be something where we just don't have time to play this deck anymore too, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think this card's been really, really strong for it. But in general, you know, this Betty's been strong. It's been weird. It's been weird to say, you know, Betty came out in OP05 or in OP11 going to OP12. Pretty much every meta since then, I've been having people be like, oh, Betty's good now. This is great. Especially like when we got the new yellow stuff in OP9, right? A lot of people are like, oh, this is it. Betty's going to take off. But it wasn't until OP11 where it's not even like we didn't get anything super new. I think like the fact that Rob Lucci isn't around as much means that Betty can really take off. There's not a lot of like low to the ground removal decks that exist verbatim, at least compared to like the grand scheme of the meta. And because of that, Betty really gets to take off. So it's like Rob Lucci and Dofi were just really bad matchups for it when OP09 came out. So with those two decks not as present in the same regard, Betty can really take off. So congratulations to Angelo for their second place finish. Also Kaminari for their top 4 with this build of Betty. The next up, we've got Smoke. So this is Hoshi with their top 8 version of the OP10 Smoker, and this is a really, really personal build. I really like to see this. We're running 25 different cards. We got a lot of 1-ofs and 2-ofs, and definitely a really teched out choice for this deck, right? Smoker came on OP10. We did get the Kujaku here to be able to have like another searcher, and also that plus 1000 is really handy for this deck as well. So being able to search out some Navy cards. This can also include like Virgo, your other searcher. That can include Rosinante. There's also the Borsalino from OP11. This is something that is for specifically like Kobe, but having this effective blocker activate main, you can rest this character up to one of your Navy type leader, or character cards can also attack active characters during this turn. So if you're playing against like blue purple and they have like a Bond Clay active, being able to say, well, my 5k leader is going to attack into your 1k body, that feels pretty good. And this is still a blocker, which is nice too. Even if you rest it, right, it just means like your opponent's going to attack into it like more times than not, so that's really handy. We have like some usual suspects like Sanji, Toshigi, and Smoker, all really great. And we do have the Kid at the top end as you know, our defensive tool to maybe get us an extra turn or two. We've got 4 copies of Hody, unsurprising. One of the cards I think a lot of people are saying that this card might get hit too, just because it has been really strong forever. It's like one of the best finishers in the game right now, and we'll see if it will continue to exist as well. And then just some 1-ofs too. We have like the E-Show from OP10, which I have never seen this card in my life, but I have now seen it. So on play, if your leader has a Navy type, rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So that can be good for some resting, and also just like a good body on 5. We also have the Sakazuki. I have seen this one. It is Navy too, which being able to say if you have 2 or more rested characters, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. Just good. These are just good stats, right? Also, the fact that even worst cases of 6 drop 7k, then you can use your leader ability and get 2 Dawn back because you are just naturally 7k. So it's a cool ad. I like the idea of this one, even though it might be a little bit tricky to get the on play effect from it. We've got X Drake from the set. We've got some additional events of the Radical Beam, the 10-layer Igloo, and the Honesty Impact. So there's a bit of a decision if you like Mulgun or Honesty Impact a little bit more. This card has a better, potentially better trigger, right? Like the trigger between the two of them are not. One's not clearly better than the other. Being able to use this to also get rid of a 10k body is really nice. The fact that this is searchable because it's navy is really nice. So it's a little bit expensive, but you can consider this like a 4-cost event in this deck because, again, as you'll almost always have a 7k out during the end game, so that helps you out as well. So really cool build. I definitely have to test it out myself, and congratulations to Hoshi for their finish with Smoker. Next up, we've got Marco, and this is Honest's version of the deck, and you guys know that I don't need to be convinced that Marco is a fun and playable deck in a lot of ways. I haven't been playing the animal package personally as much, though, and so it's really cool to see it doing well, and I'm probably wrong, right? I probably need to just be like, you know what, the animal package is really, really good. I probably just need to go back into it. But I think the removal aspect from Marco is really strong. I think that we also have just access to a lot of bodies that like just generate other bodies, right? We've got obviously the 3-drop chopper, but we also do have the 3-drop Emporio, which I've been, using this card for almost a year at this point. So I think it's very good. We got some removal from the Beckman, the New Gates, the Silver Israeli, and 2 copies of Sanji, being able to use that to help us get some late game advantage. We are playing the Divine Departure, the Just Shut Up and Come With Us, Seaquake, and also the Azure Dragon Blue Dragon Seal Water Stream. Just a mouthful of a word, but yeah, I think that this deck has like a lot of like configurability, right? Being able to get some additional ways to interact with your opponent, being able to have like some consistency from your draw effect, having a lot of blockers that we can put out too. This is just a fun deck. I've really been enjoying it. I think like adding the Nami from OP11 has been really good for this deck too. There are some times where it can also, like, if you play this on like 7 Dawn, you can set up your next draw so you can play Sanji next turn without having to use your leader effect, which is great since you do need that Dawn investment to be able to do that. And by and large, I think this is a really good deck still, and it's really cool to see a top 8 finished. I know that it does have, unironically, it has a tough matchup into Bonnie, to Betty specifically, because they just are very aggressive towards us. We do have some ways to interact with them and play a lot of blockers and a lot of bodies of our own, but we have to be careful. And then also, Teach can be kind of tricky since like half the cards in our deck are on plays, especially like our Sanji and stuff, which did win the entire event as well. So, but I'm really happy to see this deck get a top 8. I'm definitely going to keep playing it probably for the rest of this format for the next 2 weeks that we have of it. And congratulations to their finish there. And then to continue the top 8, we've got Bonnie. So this is Stefano's build of Bonnie here. And I don't know. Body's good. What's to say? Like I can never master the deck. It is the deck where I'm like, oh, I can probably play Bonnie. It's time for me to learn the deck, and I just brick or I don't do. I miss sequence, and it's can be kind of tough at times. But Bonnie's been really gracious with the cards that it got from its starter deck. Right, the Capone Gain Beige has been. I like this. I love this blocker. I think like this is a deck that like the consistency is really key. So having a draw one, trash one is so good, and especially in a color like green where we don't really have access to those kind of a things. We have just so many like non-counters in this deck. We have 15 cards with non-counter, not including this one, so 14 cards. So being able to get rid of extra copies of Hody, Eustace Kid, our Zoro from our hand can be really strong from this beige, especially since you can beige. You can play it off the Eustace Captain Kid, which is really nice. The Basil Hawkins from the set, just having an extra 2k that also lets you have like your Dawn Plus effects. Urush has been back into favor, I think, for Bonnie decks in particular. We have X Drake as well, being able to have a way to interact with a 5 or less, get the rest from it, then also get the Dawn back afterwards. Again, like I always say, like, okay, they have Bond Clay, cool, play X Drake, attack into it, and then you get your Dawn back for resting stuff. So that's still very good. Carrot's been a strong card. Cavendish has been a strong card. I don't think that's crazy. We're not playing 5-drop Smoker, which it's always tempting to play that card in the deck, and I understand when you do, but man, when it's stuck in your hand, you feel really bad as well. So I think it's fine to not play the card as well. And yeah, that's really it. Bonnie gets some new support in OP12. I think this deck is just going to continue to be around, right? It's never the best deck in any format, but it's always viable, I think is the way to think about it. But this is the build here from Stefano. Congratulations for their top 8 with Bonnie. And to wrap up the top 8, we've got Enrio's version of the Eustace Captain Kid, and definitely one of the highlights for this event is getting Kid into this top 8. So I didn't really mention it either, but in the top 8 we had 5 different leaders into this top in general. So, or sorry, six different leaders, 5 copies of individuals and 3 copies of Betty, which is really remarkable. I think that's something that's really remarkable for a top 8 for like a World's Finals, to see such diversity. I think at this point I'm going to say pretty clearly that Betty's been the best deck in this format for us in OP11, but to see so many other decks get into there in the top 8 I think is really interesting. So Kid's been getting, I think, like a little bit of support here and there. I think like the burn deck aspect can be really great for the deck too. The fact that we do have like the new beige, this from OP11, this card is just really cracked. Obviously it's been getting a lot of play in like the law deck too, but being able to use it in this deck is really nice to be able to get like a blocker that also puts a card into our life face down, so we can use it for our leader effect at the next turn. 8-drop Kid's been really strong. 7-cost Trafal Law being able to be like a heal that also, like, the fact that this can make like such good 9k blockers in a deck is fantastic, right? There are so many decks that just can't interact with it very nicely. I think Betty in particular has some hard times in the fact that we have so many blockers in this deck, but also the fact that we have access to heal, which is really, really strong. I think Law in general is just going to be a great card for a while too, especially with us getting the I think Green Yellow Law is going to be good in the next format. We'll talk about more about that when we get there. But then we do have a good amount of triggers. We do also have 4 copies of the Zoro. So this is obviously for the deck, right? This also could be used for Law too, but you don't see this card I think as often. But having this trigger, you can trash 1 card from your hand. If your leader has Supernova's type, you get to play this from your life. So from your life, right, we have 4 Zoros. We also have 4 Kiko Nojos. We have the Basil Hawkins trigger, as well as the Nico Robin to be able to play something which can play out like either a beige or also Viola, right? Viola being able to just flip your life face down is good, just to be able to get the refresh of our leader effect, which sometimes we just need that, right? Sometimes we just need to be able to refresh it once, and having it like a 5th copy of your beige blocker I think is good. We have also our other beige. We have our Zeus. This is honestly looking like a pretty nasty deck in general. So lastly, we do have the Gum Gum Fire Fist Pistol Red Hawk. This is from OP11. Being able to KO something 5 or less is good. The fact that it's a 1 cost plus 3k is good for your leader, and makes sense why kind of like defensive or chunkier deck like Kid is playing a card like that one. So here's the build here. Congratulations for Enrio for their top 8 with the Eustace Captain Kid. So next up we've got Buggy, and so this is Santos's top 16 version of the deck here. Buggy was able to get 2 copies into the top 32, and I'm not honestly that surprised by it. I do know that like Buggy is like really contended of like, is it the deck good, is it bad? People are still kind of figuring it out in its own way, but I think honestly I think the deck is pretty good in this format, and I'm curious to see what it looks like into OP12, especially since we do have a restriction list in our OP12. I don't think any of the cards are going to be hit in general for it, so there's not that much I think is too particular about it. I do think like putting at 4 copies, it's the maximum amount, right, that you can play. I think that also, a lot of people are not expecting putting in these decks. Like, right, the first time a lot of people were building this, there were just, you're playing 50 cross skill cards, right? There's not that much diversity with it, but a lot of people are just finding more and more room for some blue tech. So 4 copies of Pudding is really good. Sables being viable is really, really interesting too, right? This card has been out since the beginning of this game, right? This is the Wave 1 Star decks with Star Deck 3, and it hasn't seen that much play since release, but now it's just like a very viable card in Buggy, I think in particular. 7 or less is great, and also the trigger being able to bounce the 7 or less back into hand. There are so many cards that get hit by this that it's crazy, right? Especially in something like Green Purple Luffy or something like that. Being able to bounce something like that back to their hand for only 4 Dawn is such a good value trade in this game right now. So other than that, I think these are just kind of the general cards we've been seeing, right? You kind of have to place a lot of cross guild cards where you're playing 41 with it. Croc Mihawk's been really good. Buggy promo has been like the matchup warper in a lot of ways, and it's just been really strong for this deck in general. So not much more to say. Congratulations to Santos for their build with Buggy. The next up, we got Rob Lucci. This is Truno's version. The deck that will just never die. It did do, I know, pretty well in some of the North America events we had on our side this weekend too, but it's good. Like removal is good. If Betty is around, this is like Betty's like worst matchup outside of Buggy, I think. The fact that you are able to just remove their bodies before they're able to get advantage from it. The fact that we're a 5-life defensive deck. The fact that we have Rebecca. The fact that like 10-drop Kuzan is just like randomly viable now. Maybe maybe not randomly, but this came out of set 2. It got fringe results for the majority of the last 2 years or so, and now it's just like, oh, it's a staple for Evan Rob Lucci, which is bonkers to see like how different that's kind of been. So there are, if you're playing against like blue purple Luffy, though, if they don't have red rock, this stays on the board the entire game, and then every card that they play is just instantly removable, right? I'm sure some people definitely have like the double 10 drop dream where you play both of them. Every card that they play is 0 cost, and then like Brooke can get rid of it just by playing a card, by playing it. So I think this is definitely a if it's a greedy card, it's a high value card late game, but if you are able to get to that, there are just so many good ways to remove everything. Not only in like the fact that a 5 or less is really good removal for specifically Betty, but then like, for example, let's say you're playing against the blue purple Luffy, like the previous turn you played Jack, and then they actually have a hard time getting rid of Jack because it's 11 cost. Then they play something you can attack with Rob Lucci, you can play Kuzan, so you have 6 reduction, and then Jack can get rid of a 9 cost, which can be Sanji, which can be Pudding, it can also be like a Katakuri. There's just so many good cards. If they can't get rid of Jack the turn you play it, then you just get to go off with this Kuzan, and then you just feel really bad with it. So I think this deck is really good. It has the really flexible removal, still can still be a little bit clunky, and we're not in the Gecko Moria days anymore, which I think is a good thing. But it's a really cool. I think it's really cool to see this deck still survive in its way, and I think it's still in a really good spot. So here's a build from Truno. Congratulations for their finish with the Rob Lucci. And next up, you got blue purple Luffy. This is Dio's version of the build, and this is also the top placing blue purple Luffy in this event. There might have been some others in top 16, but it didn't crack into the top 8, which I think is bizarre for the track record for blue purple Luffy for the entirety of our OP11 format, right? It is different than Japan's because we do have like the starter decks, which doesn't really affect this deck primarily, but it does secondarily, where there's a lot of different decks that are walking around. But in general, like it's been weird to see this dominate so heavily in OP11 and OP12 for Japan, and this deck is clearly good, but it's not outrageously good. I don't think it's really topped our one events that are like outrageous for us. It's definitely feels bad to play against, but it never quite gets there, which is really interesting in a deck that is a 6k leader, has access to giant, right? There's so many things that go right with this deck, but it never like gets the perfect finish for us in North America, or in the English version rather, for this card game. So I don't think there's anything like too outrageous for the cards in the deck we are playing. Our Pudding, we are playing like one of the 8-drop Luffy once again, which had a lot of like mysterious pop-ups I think this weekend, but still very good. I honestly like this deck is like, if you have Sanji Lin on curve, you win, or you're in a really good spot. If you do 2 back-to-back, you likely win the game. So which is not outrageous to do for this deck, but you do have to set up a little bit. I think Nami being able to get there is good too. We are very event heavy, right? We are playing, I think, 16 events in this deck too, so there are some ways to bricks, but when 4 of them are giant, you're usually feeling okay. So you guys probably have some opinions on blue purple. We'll see what happens when we get to our OP12, or what happens at least in the restriction list that gets announced later this month. And congratulations to Dio for their finish there. All right, wrapping it up, we've got 3 unique decks in the top 32, and starting off with Leo's version of the black and yellow Monkey D. Luffy. I've been honestly, like, I don't know if this is blasphemous, I've been missing playing this deck, I'll be honest. I really enjoy what this deck does. I enjoy like the cool mechanics for it. I do think like the Gecko Moria interaction with it was bad for the game. I'm happy it doesn't exist anymore, but we do know we're getting some support for this deck in general, and kind of like the yellow 3 brothers archetypes from that star deck anyways, they're all getting support with some new cards in the next little bit too. But this is a kind of like, I'd say like more aggressive build. We do have like 4 copies of the Ace. We do have like a lot of removal. We got the Sabo, and this is like, again, like a really clean build. But this is like when Zeus was announced for OP11. As we're getting to OP11, right? This card got announced, and then when we got to our OP11, Gecko Moria was banned, right? And we just weren't able to get like the full power Zeus combo with the black and yellow Luffy. So being able to play this card in the deck is really great, right? We were just kind of like, we had to run like Makino, to be able to get that additional like removal and stuff. So Zeus being able to get like a removal and a card draw and getting us down to 0 life so we can use our leader effect. It's just so good. It's such a good card that helps us out so so many different ways. So we don't have like that much I think like innovation otherwise. I think this is a deck that is way more on like the play side than the deck building side. side, and you know, I would love to see some more gameplays of this, and maybe I'll play a little bit of the black and yellow Luffy as well. But here's the build from Leo. Congratulations for their finish there. Next up, we got Trafal Law. This is George's version of the deck here, and you know, Law has been, I think, doing pretty good in Japan for their OP12 format. There are some like good green cards. The fact like the new Bonnie, I think, is really good for the deck too. But this deck is still like a very heavy on like the player side, which is cool to see. So we also do have the Kitten Killer, and Japan, they were doing well without this card in OP12 because their release of the Star decks was like a month delayed compared to us, which is very interesting to see them make that decision. But Kid Killer, yeah, being very strong at getting like another search target, and just kind of makes, you know, Law so viable. Right now we're playing in this deck in particular 11 searchers, right, being able to get consistency, especially since they're on play searchers, so we can bounce them back with our leader effect and still like get a +1 card draw, which is really great. Continue to say Zeus is a really good card, Cavendish, Bonnie. We've got our Trafalgar Laws. There's been a lot of discussion if this card is worth being played in the deck, where it's sometimes like your best finisher outside of Hody, but also like if you don't have a board to support this card just doesn't do anything, right? So I do get like there's a lot of like back and forth and what's the best way to play that card, but I think it's not like the worst card in slot either. And then our top end of Hody Jones, Law, and Captain Kidd. So I do know that there's also like there's been people testing like copies of Room and like other events, especially since Kid Killer does let us like pop the card to be able to get like a Dawn active on defense, which is really good. There are some ways to kind of take advantage of it as well. But I think Law is really good. I think this is definitely still like also a leader that there is like a good amount of like deck building as well as playing. So it's you know, one of the more complex decks in this game, right? You have to be able to be really confident with your build and then still be able to play your build at a high level too. But this is a build from George. Congratulations for their top 32 with the Trafalgar Law. And to wrap it up, we've got Eric's version of the green and purple Luffy. Also, shouts to Eric for emailing me this list. I would not have access to it otherwise, so I really appreciate him reaching out. I don't have much to say though. I honestly, I know that's kind of lame. Green purple Luffy is probably again like one of like Betty and Luffy, right? You know, like 46 cards your opponent is playing when you get into it, right? It's very understood like what the card pool for it is. It's pretty small, but the cards are really good, and they do a lot. So there is kind of like some build decisions, right? Luffy Taro, I think, has been you know, upgraded from like a 2 of an OP10 to a 3 of an OP11. There's also the Hody Jones, which you have to be careful because this card does turn off your leader effect, so the sequencing for it is really good, but it's such a good card, right? Tapping Dawn is so good in this game that it's worth not having your leader effect. It can just help you win the game in those situations. There's a decision if you like Gamma Knife or Electrical Luna, one or the other more in this deck. I think Gamma Knife is the more popular version by quite a bit, especially since this is a Heart Pirates card, so this is searchable off the when you're at sea, you get to fight pirates, which is really strong, and then kind of the rest of the standard package as well. So Tony Chopper, I think, has been like really like debatable, like how many copies of you play. 0, 2, 4. We're playing 3 in this one, but you know, it's a great card for ramping, especially in a meta where like blue purple Luffy is very common, where they are able to, you know, you are able to be like, this is a blocker that ramps 1. You'd have to be careful about it turning off your leader ability, but like another blocker, especially like again against some more aggressive decks, can be really good too. So not much more to say. Congratulations to Eric for their top 32 finish. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Also, I'm looking forward to you know, OP12 as well, see what shifts we get. We're just kind of like in this weird like this waiting period, right? We don't have that many events. We had like no events in North America in July. We like at least like larger events, like regional events, until like all the Treasure Cup regionals and stuff that happened at Gen Con. We have OP12, but we also don't know if OP12 is going to be what the format's going to look like, because my expectation is that the restriction list is coming out and we're going to get it with our OP12, but that could be wrong. But that's just my expectation for it. So we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. We're still kind of in this waiting period, but it's been really cool to see all these different deck lists top for this weekend, and I'm looking forward to some more results as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.